sounds like he was definitely very energetically sensitive and possibly empathic, which is kind of, because I've talked to people who work with energetically sensitive children. The tics thing is literally the body or the field feeling energies coming at them or thoughts coming at them. So it was probably a lot for him to process, but my feeling is that he was pretty advanced probably at the soul level, and it was just something that was part of his process. But Jamie, since we haven't heard from you yet, I want to give you a chance to kind of maybe take over the story a little and just tell us a little bit about Erik from your perspective, having that experience of him now, you know, from the afterlife, and what he's like and what his personality is like with you.
Hey, Stephanie. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Erik, he's doing his best to keep his mouth, you know, quiet. All he can tell me is how cute you are and how well you're spoken and all this. But, I mean, Erik he definitely has maintained all that sensitivity, and I agree with you, Stephanie. I really feel like all these kind of hardships he had in his human experience was definitely due to the sensitivity level that he had. But now that he's in spirit, he's kept this rawness that a human experience would have, but he has just inundated it with all of this spiritual knowledge, and it's such a trip to sit down and listen to him. It's quite different and unusual than what I'm used to, because he'll say something so enlightened, but he'll say it with such raw language, and you're like, what? Like, what? And he has no problem cutting you off. He has no problem coming in. He has no problem pranking, making himself very kind of loud and proud, kind of to say. But it's a very tangible way of learning, if you want to call it spiritual guidance or just kind of universal truth.
Yeah, I get that there's a groundedness to it, and I think he gets that from you, Lisa, too, because to me, and it's funny, I feel it like literally there's this like something that happens in my mind, in my brain, like I can hear it in my inner ear. It's really funny when certain things come through, and when you're talking, that was the connection that was coming through, and little chills up the body and stuff. But it's interesting because when I was led to both of you through the blog, I felt this resonance with Erik deeply, because part of my mission, I think, at some point is really working with a lot of these new children that are coming in and these very advanced souls that are coming in and teaching them and kind of being that way shower for them a little bit. And I really feel that Erik brings in such needed guidance for that, because there's just such a huge hole of understanding that people just don't even tap into, and it's about getting that out there so people go, oh, okay, there isn't so much to fear, right? And there is something going on, and we are infinite beings, and having that kind of reassurance is so important. So I do believe the work he's doing. I want to commend him for keeping it grounded and real, because that's the language of these children. You know, they don't want to be talked down to, and they want to be spoken to like adults, because they're such masters, many of them anyway. So I really love that. I love hearing that from you, Jamie, and I'm so excited that he's here. And welcome, Erik, to the show too. I know it's going to be quite the ride with him as our co-pilot.
Yes,
that's
he says hi.
Well, beautiful. Well, before we get started, and I do this every time with Angels in the Buff, I'd like to just quickly set the intention for tonight's episode by reminding our listeners that we've joined here to create a safe, sacred space to discuss all types of subjects pertaining to the invisible forces that surround us. So I invite you to approach anything discussed with an open mind, combined with personal discernment, meaning take what works for you, leave what doesn't. It's your spiritual toolbox, and you can decide what you want to put into it. So let's just get centered, everybody, with a deep breath. And I ask all the invisible forces of love and light to surround all of us with peace, love, joy, and clarity, connecting us at the level of our expanding hearts and the one infinite mind to weave a connection that serves us all. I know as sparks of the divine source of all that is, that we are truly one. There is no separation from each other or from the source of all creation, which means we already know everything we need to understand about who we are, why we're here, and what we're creating as masters of universal energy. So knowing this, we gather to simply remind each other, do the work within, and remember this unity between us that is always accessible and in service to our highest good and conscious transformation. And with this knowledge, I simply state into the universal field, we are complete and connected in love, and so it is, and so we are. So That's something we do every time here on the show, just to kind of get everybody grounded and centered and connected. And because I do think that these transmissions, as they go out on the air, they live on in perpetuity, and people are going to come at this in any time, right? And it's like quantum energy, so we just like to get everybody in the same space in that moment. But Elisa, I just really want to first congratulate you as a fellow author on publishing My Son in the Afterlife. I know this has been something you've been working on for a while, and it's always so great to see it graduate from the blog space into a physical book that can further expand the journey of it. And I'm just wanting to congratulate you on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, just let people know. And it's on Amazon, I know that, right?
Mm-hmm. It's on all the online venues pretty much, and the actual storefronts.
Okay, perfect. And it's pretty much a transcription for the most part, too, of the conversations you and Jamie have had with Erik and just his thoughts and feelings. So it's really personal, and I really loved reading it. But let's just get started. Let's get into it and see what Erik has to say, because I know he's chomping at the bit over there, Jamie, I can tell. So we'll be kind on him and stop torturing him and let him kind of come through. But I wanted to start with, I really love the idea that our afterlife is based on the beliefs we create when we're alive. This is one of the things that came up in the book. And, that if you believe in hell, there's a very high probability that you're going to experience something of a hell-like experience to work through back to the light, which is always there, of course. And whereas if you don't believe in it, you kind of skip that whole construct and just go straight home, so to speak. So essentially what I've learned from Erik already is that we really are the architects or designers of both our lives on Earth and our spiritual existence. But can Erik talk a little bit more about how that works maybe? He can even get into that whole life review process if he wants, a little bit, to kind of just explain what happens, in that process when we pass.
He said, absolutely. I think the best point that you made, he says, is you're reinforcing not only are you in control of your afterlife or your transition there, you're so much in control of the life that you live. We underestimate our power all the time because we just don't see and interact with the energy. We're not really taught that it's there. Our school systems have failed us. Our culture has failed us. Sorry, but I'm just wanting to be blunt. We're sent out on our own to figure out what our belief systems are, what they can be, what works for us, and it's all going to be so individualistic. But there's some common ground rules, and the first one is what you choose to believe in is what's going to play out for you, and that's not just the human experience, like Stephanie was just mentioning. That's what I'm saying. That if you think that hell or, angels are going to greet you when you cross over, this hell or the angels are going to be there for you because this is your truth. You are hand designing what your environment is, and there is no right and wrong in that experience. You are able to feed yourself exactly what you need. You said I could cuss, right? Or repeat what he says is what I mean.
Yeah, he can. And I just want to let everyone know who's listening, if you are sensitive to the F-bomb, then this might not be the show for you, but just try to get through it. Go ahead, Erik.
He says, the cool shit is when you are hand creating this experience, you get this opportunity where these spirits, these guides, these gurus, whatever you want to call them, your angels come forward and they're like, hey, man, we want you to see what's been happening. And you get this kind of life review. And we've probably all heard the term now, life review, kind of sings it out, his arms are up in the air. But he said what it really is, it's showing us how we could have really felt our lives. It's not changing anything, but when you are reviewing it, it's not with those eyes. And Stephanie, you've got some really pretty blue eyes. All right, sorry. Erik, on track. You're not looking at it with your eyes. You are feeling it. So you can see the images all around you from the moment you came in, and what you're doing is you're feeling what your environment has gone through because of what you yourself have conducted, what you yourself have made. And it's going to show you that we are not just a human being. We're really an emotional being. This is how we're designed. And listen, if your ears are glued to this show right now, you yourself know you're a feeler. You're
yeah.
Kind of made that sound nasty in the second sentence. Let's skip that. But he said you're attracted to what Stephanie is putting forth. The intent is that you take what works for you and you absorb it and you use your emotional honesty, which is a big word for me, right, Mom?
Oh, yeah. That's on your repeat list for sure.
Yes, on his repeat list. And he said you use that emotional honesty to get through your moments. You know, it's not really like you're standing there and you've got this great future and you've got this great past, because that system right there is just a bunch of bullshit. You've just got these moments, this nowness, this is. And as soon as we can stop using our heads to judge this place and stop believing there is a future and a past and a right and a wrong and a black and a white and this and that, we can start feeling where we are in this now, and we won't have these struggles, we won't have these anxieties, we won't have these expectations. You know, we can actually truly be ourselves. I'm still looking forward to that.
What's interesting, too, what I thought was interesting is that in that life review process, we really take the perspective of the other person, too. And it's almost like we're a recording device, and we're recording those moments, and then when we get to review them, you know, we're not only reviewing them from our perspective, but we're actually reviewing them from everybody we affected in that moment, so we can really see what were they thinking, what were they feeling in that moment of that experience, which I thought was fascinating. And it's fascinating for me because I approach angels a little differently, which I'm sure Erik sort of knows if he's tapped into me at all energetically, but I approach them really as an art and a science, or a science and an art, like learning the science of the foundation, and then the art is the practice of working with them. But I work with it as a frequency and an energy, and I think of them as light streams and getting back to their source light, the closest they are to source, not the anamorphic, you know, personifications and costumes we've given them as like Michael and Gabriel or whatever other labels people give them, right? And not that any of that doesn't work for me, and I don't try to dismiss any of that for people who are really into that, but I'm really getting it to the commonality of energy so that everyone understands we're all that energy. And so ultimately for me, angels, they joke with me when I tap into them, it's about angles or perspectives and looking at things from different ways. And I wanted to get his perspective on that, you know, in terms of, because I know he's talked about angels briefly on the blog and so forth, as kind of being the actual doers, you know, where spirit guides might be the communicators and suggestors and guidance systems of like, you might want to try this. The angels will actually kind of step in and help move things around. So can he give us any insights on his feeling of angels and what he thinks about how I'm presenting them and if that's working for him? Because I'm just curious of his opinion.
He was like, can I? Just tell me when to stop. I'd love to talk about it. And he goes, I love the way you're looking at it. And in fact, not to put anybody down, but the way that you're presenting this is slightly outside of the box and a little bit more accurate description of what their energies are. Because they're not these tall beings with these damn big feathered wings. You know, they don't carry around halos on their head. It's a type, a very specific type of energy or light being that doesn't incarnate into several different lives and different dimensions. It's like they're there to, you quoted me before, to do the shit, to do the stuff. And we talk about, well, what is there to do? And he's smiling. He says, there's a lot to do, especially in allowing the people on Earth, allowing the spirit, the energy, the animals, the trees, everything that has a life force on Earth to be its authentic self. And so this angelic energy, basically their big job is to walk around and help take off the coating, strip down the paint, take off the blankets, take off people's tiny little logical belief systems that really don't fit them but were taught to them by somebody else, but they don't recognize that because they're not stepping into their own, you know, like opening them up. So when you find yourself looking for like a universal help, or asking help through your religion or through your spirituality or whatever your belief system is, and you look at that source that you're talking to, praying to, or, giving worship to, there are light energies around that source that kind of step away and come out and can cross dimensions and help unify all of it. And really, that's their job. That's what they're doing.
I kind of think, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, but I kind of think of angels, or I always go to angelic. I use angelic a lot because, again, it's an energy to me. But I kind of think of it as almost the first thoughts, inspirations, or things that are placed into motion as light, sound, magnetics, frequencies, whatever, vibrational aspects that are the first separation from source itself. So it's pretty much everything else to me then becomes angelic by design.
Yes.
And then it just solidifies down in a form. It takes different shapes. It creates a planet over here, a star over there, a human over here, whatever. But it's that first kind of wisdom, intelligence, whatever you want to call it, that's going out and doing stuff. Action.
Erica, but wait, Stephanie, how do you describe to the human masses? Because this is where I get stuck. Like the human language, it pisses me off so much. I get so angry that this kind of first tier, and he does a little air quote around the word tier, of this separation, and it's not really a separation, like that word itself sucks, but this first tier of angelic energy, how do we use the language but describe to people that there's not certain levels or layers or steps or stairs?
Hierarchy, I think, is the word you're looking for too, right?
Yeah, he goes, we're not going to say that. It just upsets him.
Yeah. I agree. And I think when people approach me and they start talking about hierarchies, like there is no hierarchy. We are all one. We are all the same. It's all one energy. It's just, I think what I'm kind of describing it as is a technology of the soul or spirit, if you will. So it's a system that people can relate to in the linear mind frame of being on this planet because they're not in source. They're not connected as much as Erik is, right? While we're here, we're still in the duality, polarity consciousness. So how do we get our linear mind around it? And I think that's where we tend to compartmentalize and we tend to put labels and all these things. And I kind of tell people, let's put some labels and things and make them a little bigger, broader, right? Empower them so you really understand it in a bigger way than what you kind of think small with it. Let's think bigger. But understand at the end of the day, that's all even an illusion, really, because it's all one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he goes, can't we create some new language here so we can talk about these things and they don't mean bigger, better, or hierarchy? They just are. That's cool for you to do in all your free time?
He's joking because I have so much on my plate, so thank you for that, Erik.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of what I am trying or attempting to do. I'm not trying, I'm like working toward it, but it's interesting because for me, I kind of look at it, I try to explain to people, if you take source as a light, right, and you were to put a window or stained glass window, and then the light's streaming through the different color spectrum, it's still the light. It's just coming through a different spectrum. Or a prism, let's say you put it through a prism, and it's splitting out into a rainbow. So for me, the different frequencies, because people say, well, I see blue, and I see purple, and I see green. I said, great. That's all source. You're just tapping into maybe specific aspects of source that you're desiring to pull into your life. There's an intention behind it. And to me, that's what I wanted to ask him about next is thought forms and intention and what we create with our thoughts, because I think that's a fascinating topic in and of itself. But to me, that's what we're doing in a way, is intentionally tapping into the areas of source to get certain information perhaps, or get certain frequencies for healing perhaps, or something. Does that make sense to him?
Here's, I think I understand what you're talking about. Can I separate that? Because you're saying thought into manifestation or thought into receiving answers.
Thought into creating form, I guess, is meaning like if you're an inventor and you think up something you invented and then now it's there physically into form, there's a period of time maybe that transpires for that. But our thoughts become things. I guess that's the whole idea of the thoughts become things eventually, the manifestation process. I think that's what I'm kind of curious what he thinks about that.
I think the brain is secondary to the heart, he says. If we're moving forward with this passion or an emotional drive, like the emotions are the gas in the car to make it get up in speed, we're going to gain more traction and more control, more coverage. if we're using our head, which I think is a secondary tool, which it doesn't make it less better. See, even in that stupid little sentence, you would think, oh, he hates that shit but likes this. But he's being so funny right now. But he says, in the head, we tend to create these structures or these molds or these little jail cells that kind of encompass certain ideas or how-tos or processes that we just kind of forget and we follow them. Like we forget to pay attention and hand create it as we're going. We forget to stay in the now, so we just rely on to what's comfortable. And we forget to climb into the middle of the fence and allow these inventions and ideas to download or cross our paths or open up to a multidimensional experience. We forget to get on the fence. We forget to say, even though I'm believing in this and I know that that's my truth and something over here is coming at me and it ain't that cool, I still want to remain open to it. You know, closing down is not going to protect me from it. It's my acceptance that protects me from it. So I don't need to physically walk away or defend or push back. I need to open up. Let it come. Like you said at the beginning, you take what fits you and you let go of the rest. So like if we could get our head, our logic to stay on the fence as we have these experiences, man, you will unlock what your logic can do for your emotions and begin to manifest so much more than what you understood possible. And when you say manifest, he's showing me images that go with it. Some of them look like messages, like conversations with angelic source or God source or your loved ones. And other ones, the other part he's showing me looks more like a tangible thing, like maybe the invention or the design. And then the other one looks like innate knowledge, like having a key to a library somewhere and you just get downloaded with info, details.
Well, let's talk about that for a second, because that was one of my other questions, since he seems to be picking up on that. Is he familiar with the idea of something we refer to as the akashic records of a soul? And does he have anything to share on that? And is there such a place as a library, for instance? Because a lot of people believe this. So I like to clarify for people and get clear. And what does he have to say about it?
Because, you know, many people find this surprising. I think my mom even finds this surprising. But my go-to bathroom is in the Akashic Records library. It's the quietest bathroom ever, and that's where I go to meditate, on my throne. You're pulling your leg.
Awesome.
Yes.
Now, is it a central library that everybody kind of goes and finds their file? Like, I almost think it's the cloud, and everybody goes in and gets their file and downloads what they need, or is it more like, you know, everybody has their own individual library for their specific...
Dude, check this out. So I'm hoping I can paint this picture for you, because a lot of us, when we say library, we think that it's one location and that everybody has to drive there or get there or fly there and go to the library and get their book. But here, in this multidimensional world that I live in, heaven, home, whatever you want to call it, is if you are seeing it in your mind's eye, if you're focusing on it, if you're believing in it, if you're thinking about it, you're going to arrive. And it's going to be created to fit your needs. So think about this library as not being in a three-dimensional space, but morphing to fit individuals' needs. So it's not like you're walking into a lobby and we've got 10,000 other people waiting, or going, excuse me, can you tell me where L51 is? You know, it's not like that. It's driven energetically, and it morphs and shapes, and you arrive in your location, in your space, and every information about you that you created for yourself and all the lives you've chosen to live, and might I be clear, not all your lives are totally wrapped around Earth.
Right.
Using his hands like he's doing some amazing magic.
Yeah.
But
that's funny, because that's kind of how I understand it as well. And I work with the Akashic Records. I mean, I'm a reader for that sometimes, like as a side thing. But it's interesting because I've had past life expressions show up through that, and I've had different things come in. But one of the things I wanted to ask him about, which kind of baffles me, and this has to do with past life incarnations, and of course I understand it as he understands it, where it's all time is the same and it's parallel lives really and all that. So I think a lot of my listeners can understand that or find resources for that. But what I really am curious about is, I get the concept of us being like holograms, right? And we're like in this holographic universe, so we're kind of aspects of the whole, and we all contain the whole, therefore, and all this stuff. And but I'm curious to know if we're coming in as souls, right, and to come in as a human being, to put on a human suit, and we want to experience, maybe multiple lives in the same time frame. So let's say I'm a soul, and I want to come in as a male over here and a female over there. Is there ways for us to literally split into two different bodies? Because this is something that I've always been fascinated by. And there's a reason I'm going this direction, but what's the answer to that one first, I guess, is my first question.
He's like, hell yeah, Stephanie. You used the example just now, the holograph. Mm-hmm. You know what happens if you take the holograph, like you got that little image that you bought in a leather, string, and it's a skull, mm-hmm. and you look at the holograph and it's all pretty, but you slam it to the ground and it shatters. Let's imagine that pendant we're talking about is your soul. It belongs to you. You shatter it. Bam, it breaks into like 20 pieces, and you pick up a piece and you look at it. It still has the whole damn holograph in it. It still has the whole thing. So even though it's a part of, it contains the whole. And that's what the soul can do at any given time. So we know that time is not linear. It wraps and twists in on itself. But if you have designed a lesson, a fulfillment that you want for yourself, you can divide 20 times within the same time frame and all jump in and like some crazy extreme sport and be born again and run into yourself and love yourself and experience yourself in another body. And also, check this cool thing out. What if you came back, let's say 3 times, right? Same lifetime, you're a dude, you're a monk, and you're a woman. And in this same time, air quotes, the monk dies. And all of a sudden, this woman and this dude get inundated with this information and this craving to know more about being a monk. Because this information comes back to the larger hologram. It goes back into the other pieces. Because that's its home. That's its place. That's its location. So even if you divide, but those pieces are a whole in and of itself, it will come back together. That's the beauty of being an energetic soul. This is kind of why we're doing this gig.
Now, are there soul groups or families? Like, for instance, I kind of think of it as sometimes there's like a light line. There's a line of if you were to look back through the past lives, let's call them that, in a linear way, and this again is a human construct, so he can put it however he wants. This is just how the human in me wants to kind of define it, and we follow this light line. So let's say, for instance, someone's told me, oh, you were in Atlantis, for instance, right? And then they say, oh, and I see you during the plague, and oh, I see, and you kind of follow this line, right? Does that line of incarnation, I guess you could say, follow specific bloodlines? That's one question. Or is it always coming through similar soul vibrational families? Like, is there any type of organization or rhyme to reason in this process as we incarnate, or is it really just totally random?
He's like turning in circles and shouting, "It's chaos, Stephanie, it's chaos." Because no, you're not bound by one particular rule or one particular expectation of you. So you don't have to be in the same linear family. You don't have to all jump down with your soul family. You can see someone in a different soul family and say, hey, dude, you want to do this? You want to play that role for me? I'll play that role for you. But you still recognize that soul family and those soulmates when you're on Earth. You see each other and your hearts just go, oh, dude, I know you. But you don't have to do it together. So, yeah, chaos.
Okay.
He's laughing.
Okay. It's a soup. I call it the cosmic soup, so I get that. I understand.
He likes that.
Okay. Good. So this is something that came in at the last minute that I wanted to ask him, too. This is a term that's being thrown around by so many people, especially in my circle because I work in the spiritual world, right, of what does the term really mean of Christ consciousness? Because I feel like there's so many friends of mine and people I know, they all think they're the second coming on some level, or they're connected somehow, or they were in a scene, or they were walking with Christ, or whatever, and we can look at it. People told me I was Magdalene in a lifetime. I'm like, oh, that's great, whatever. I don't get attached to the story, I'll be honest. It's like all about the now for me, and that's great, and that's fun, and that's a cute thing. But really at the same time, I'm looking at it as, is there something to be said? Is there something to be said for like some type of Christ consciousness grid, like this ascension process everybody talks about? There's all these things coming in where we're working toward getting to a place where we know truly who we are. I mean, is that really all that means, or what is his take on it? Because I think there's just so much info on it, and I'm not finding any answers that really satisfy me. So there you go. How about it?
He said, well, you asked what's Christ consciousness. It'd be the same thing as me saying, well, what's God? Mm-hmm. Or what's your consciousness? What's Stephanie consciousness? It's a label. It's a word to help a human put a structure on a learning device that they want to incorporate into their own life. And there's nothing, wrong with this. It is what it is. And it's a label to describe a person who did walk the earth, because I know there's a lot of discussion going on, was that dude even real? He was real. Stories get exaggerated, but he was a pretty cool guy, and he was bringing people together, and it's nice that we're still remembering him, but he's part of the whole. It's kind of like, he just sat down with me. He's going to get into something. It's kind of like...
Uh-oh.
Yeah. It's kind of like you pitching the idea that chocolate ice cream is going to be the best thing ever, and that you should only have the chocolate. And the chocolate is what's going to heal you, and the chocolate is what's going to be organic and so forth. When really we should be discussing ice cream as a whole. It's just a different flavor of a product. Everybody needs to have their own slice, their own version, their own perception of it so that they know how to climb the ladder and walk the path. That's how I see it.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I relate to that because I kind of say there's different threads to get into the whole fabric, and it's like finding the thread that you resonate with the most, that works for you, that makes you comfortable, makes you feel peace and joy and love. And if it's not making you feel those things, that's kind of where you can discern, well, maybe this isn't for me, And for me, angels, create a bridge because they're more universal, and so that's why I like to work with angels.
He's interrupting. Stephanie, get real. You like naked angels. Just saying.
Well,
who doesn't?
This is funny because Angels in the Buff, I know he's playing on Angels in the Buff, but the buff means a couple things because Michael's energy kind of overlights me, and Michael I see is indigo blue, and I tell people Michael so people understand which one I'm talking about. But what I saw when this came in one morning at like 4 a.m. or 5, whatever time, they always wake me, and he's like, maybe he can explain why they always want to wake me up in the middle of the night or early morning. But I'm woken up, and I literally get Angels in the Buff. I'm like, what is that? And then suddenly I'm seeing like an archangel, like your typical Archangel Michael in a loincloth, right? And then I'm getting, you're lucky I'm wearing a loincloth. And I'm thinking, what? And then I'm getting... later, like way later, after the show's been on like 2 seasons, I'm finally getting, but buff also means the buffer of time that you must deal with and be patient with, as you're working through your human process. And also this buffering, because as a medium, and you probably know this, Jamie, sometimes there's this buffering that happens where you're like trying to find the word or trying, it's like not quite coming in clearly and you're like waiting for a second. And that's like how YouTube buffers, right? And then that buffering of angels being the buffer between us sometimes and things that are harmful to us or something that might not serve us, or they're the tools, right? There's the doers. So there's a lot of meanings to it. So I appreciate that he's saying I like naked angels, and I do like to strip off the wings and the halos and get down to the real science, but just saying, not out there like thinking porno angels, please. Oh, Erik.
So predictable.
He said, thanks.
All right. Well, okay. So this is something I want to talk about because this is something that's kind of on my heart and mind on the topic of angels, because I know we've already talked about what he kind of says they're defined by the work they do, not by their race, right? There isn't a specific race of angels that is, we're all the same, ultimately. They're just a different light being, I guess. Okay.
Yes.
But now, this was interesting, because when I was reading through something on the blog, and he was talking about boots on the ground, having some boots on the ground, and this is something that came in over time of me awakening into my work with the angels. I had one woman tell me, you gave up your immortality to come in early, before humans. Like, you came in way early. And I've had people tell me that I've been on the planet only select times, that I came in during certain periods of time. And I've had people tell me that I'm actually an incarnated angel. I'm like, oh, that's different. So it's kind of this whole theme, and it's almost like I look at the experience of life and go, okay, here's some puzzle pieces. Now, what does it all mean, right? And not that I put, again, any importance to the story, but I think it's one of those things where I just find it fascinating. And I'm like, are there incarnate angels? Are they coming in more? Were there some way showers that came in early so we could lay the groundwork so when the ones that needed to come in to help the planet, they could kind of have somebody to show them the way? This whole concept. Is that something that Erik has any insight on? Let's go. Here we go.
He goes, all right. He's rubbing his hands together. Yeah, just like we talk about there's free will and that we hand design our lives and our belief shapes our environment. Dude, we can do that. That doesn't mean that the angelic beings can't. Like, that's such bullshit to say that I got it, but you don't. You have to play that particular role and stay within that role. There's no rules, man. And it doesn't create chaos like I was teasing before, but it doesn't. There's such a harmony with it. So they can, in their position, if they need to follow through with something or want to embrace helping someone or smoothing out a situation, they can incarnate to life. It doesn't dull them. It doesn't make them less than. I will say there is a group of energetic beings, whether you want to call them guardian angels or so forth, that don't choose to incarnate into lives. And that's their free will. That's their choices. But they're doing it in a way to stay close to God's source or close to Prime Source. And it's just their way of seeing that they can help the whole better. And hey, Steph,
that's okay.
You asked why they wake you up in the morning or 4 a.m., 5 a.m.
Yeah.
Because that's your sweet spot. That's my entire body is open to learning. My mind is open. My heart is open. My soul is totally open to learning. And then when we see a human reach that sweet spot, if it's 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 5 a.m., normally it's during a rest period, we're on that shit. We're in there. We're like, hey, man, you were asking for this. You were wanting to learn this. You were trying to problem solve this. Well, guess what? I'm going to help you now. And if you're sensitive, like you are, then you're going to, bam, pop your eyes open and go, what? What is going on? Now I'm awake and I can't go back to sleep. Well, sorry if we prematurely wake you, but it is us engaging with you and trying to help you handle whatever you're going through. But I promise you, man, we follow your lead. We definitely follow your lead.
Yeah, and this was again, I think, early on in this process when I was intending to channel and be a medium and work with them, and I said yes. And the minute I said yes, this is what's really interesting. The minute I said yes, it was like boom, like all these things lined up, and that's what I try to teach people. It's like when we say yes and we give permission to please involve yourself and help me with this process, they do, but we have to ask because we're the free will spirit, right? So it's really interesting, but I found that, when I work with people, especially when I'm doing some of my healing work, and I have clairvoyance around me, or I do what I call light streaming, which is when I'm channeling or being a medium aspect and just speaking, from that place of source, they literally will see angelic beings like step into my body for a minute or stand behind me, and it's really interesting, because I do feel their presence. And so I definitely believe that they're these light beings, but yet I also have the consciousness that ultimately they're beings that are from that source. So it's kind of both, So anyway.
Yeah. I tease my mom a lot that we like to make T-shirts. So, Mom, put this one on your list. I love the way Stephanie said it was, just ask me. I'm a free will spirit.
I could make a whole wardrobe of the T-shirts you've designed, Erik.
Now, the other thing I thought would be fun to talk to him about and ask you guys is, okay, so a lot of people have connections where they feel very connected to specific archangels. And the reason we're sticking to angels, Erik, just so you know, is obviously this is a little bit about angels, the show, but are there archangels? Are there thought forms? And this, what I mean by thought forms is there an actual light being called Archangel Michael? Because so many people believe that there's a being called Archangel Michael that they've actually created him out of source. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it was just about what I was going to tell you. If X amount of people, even if one person does, it exists. But if we get 5 or 10 or 20, it's not just 20 times. I mean, it's like 200 times the fold, and we've created this being. And you got to remember that we've all started talking about this because of someone's story.
Yeah.
Someone else's, maybe a first-hand experience, maybe not a first-hand experience, but yeah, the dude is real. The name Michael, that's irrelevant, but the description of him being archangel, being more of a defender, being very strong, yeah, we got that dude here.
And would he be of that indigo blue vibration that people think of him as?
Yes. He just showed a silly image of a big, bright blue being walking around with a sword and just going around and just kind of shoving the sword, wow, say that fast, through a person's forehead, through their chakra, like, okay, wake up. Shing.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so then the only other thing that I thought was interesting that we haven't touched on, again, other than briefly, he kind of mentioned it, is off-planet and what some people might call alien beings. And Earth is kind of like what I understand Erik to describe it as. It's kind of this meeting ground, this meeting place, this hub, if you will, of different beings kind of being able to come here and meet and greet. Do alien or off-planet beings have to come through kind of what I would call a human soul print, to get into a human suit? Or do they come in and just like kind of pose as a human, but they're really like having an alien experience and know that they're an alien, I guess you could say?
Yeah, totally. No. This snow globe, Earth, is pretty much protected, contracted. So they would need to come through a human blueprint. And that's just an agreement that not just Earth has made, but other systems have made for Earth. And there's several other places that are just like Earth who do this shit.
Okay. Now, this brings me to this idea of protection and Earth, and obviously there's a lot of environmental things going on. I know for me, the dolphins are of a concern, and the cetaceans specifically, because I think of them as a living library, like I like to call it the library of the planet. They hold the records. There's a lot of that energy with them. But I also my concern is about Fukushima, and what's happening there and what we're doing to the planet on that level. And what is his insight to that? Does he have anything he can share in terms of how we can transmute some of that? Is there anything we can do to help energetically, as boots on the ground, so to speak?
Oh, you mean like why humans are assholes?
Well, yeah, but we know why, I guess, but I think now that there's that aftermath from it, is there anything that those who are more conscious can do, through healing, energetic work? I don't know what he would suggest, but is there anything we can do about it, to kind of help not make it so bad, even though it's pretty bad?
It is pretty bad, and because I will say it was a general statement to call humans assholes, but I think we kind of innately take that upon our shoulders if we're going to incarnate into a human body because we're choosing some form of amnesia to get here. And in that amnesia, we're being inconsiderate without knowing. So many of us are inconsiderate to the earth, but we have no fucking idea we're being that way. And it's hard to wake up yourself when you have no idea you're asleep. So to help kind of spread this is if you know something, you feel something that the next person doesn't, is speak up, learn to communicate better. Communicate from an emotional standpoint. If you know littering is bad and the person in front of you litters, don't just be disappointed in them. Pick it up and say, excuse me, you dropped something. And if they say, oh, I meant to put it there, then you can make a comment of, well, that's a disappointment because there wasn't a garbage can there. And then you throw it away. But you're not meant to be there to be some enforcer. You're meant to be a teacher. And I think we forget this when we're in the human body is we're all each other's teachers. We're all each other's guru. You know, the 4-year-old kid probably knows more than you do. And that 88-year-old person probably knows more than you do. It's like that with anyone you're going to come across. Same with the tiny little kitten. That kitten's going to teach you something. Why don't you sit down with it? Once you start speaking up, communicating, not defending, we can start healing the earth, allowing the earth to take a less of a blow. And it's going to get into our government systems. It's going to spread. It's going to take a little while. I've always said 2015. 2015 is something to look forward to. And you know when that is? Next year. Because there's going to be people in government positions, in corporations, and huge companies that are going to say, let's not do it that way anymore. And you're going to start seeing it. If you're a parent, you realize this. You're going to start seeing the school systems change. And, man, my mom can tell you, that shit pisses me off so bad that we're taking on that this old way of teaching is going to keep us comforted. It's not. We've got to change with our sensitivities. We have to grow with our enlightenment. And our kids are surpassing us, and we're using this old system. So you're going to start seeing it change. You have not failed yourself. Keep it up, everybody. Keep talking, communicating from the heart.
Does he feel Facebook is kind of this platform where people's communications can get through? You know, is it a positive thing? Because I know a lot of people have mixed emotions on it, but I find that sometimes information gets through there, but so does misinformation, like anywhere. What is his thoughts on how things transpire on Facebook as far as people becoming so public with their personal self?
Social media, good, bad, right? Don't they claim any media is good media, which is a crock of shit? Because living is not about media, it's not about marketing, and it's not about money. It's about learning how to feel, remembering, really. Because we already had that information prior, so it's remembering how to feel. You know, if you want to speak up and express yourself on Facebook, go for it, my friend. But doing it in a way where you're not expecting something in return, that's being authentic. If you're doing it to gain fame, to gain attention, to gain marketing skills, to whatever it is, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. You're speaking out just to show that you are better than. Like, whatever happened to the concept of truly sharing, which I think is really where Facebook came from, but it's kind of turning into a little something different. Yeah, no, I understand that. And I think that, you know, sometimes I see things go up there and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I can't believe this person posted this. It's like, whoa, you know, but it's all, you know, it's all for their experience and it's all perfect for them. So it's not a judgment of it. It's just sometimes you look at it going, okay, not what I would choose to do, but awesome, you know, good for you. Okay, well, I know we originally were going to do an hour. I don't know if, ladies, you have a few extra minutes because I had a couple more questions, but if not, that's okay too. And I don't know what Erik's thoughts are on it, but I just wanted to honor that. If we wanted to go over a few minutes, we can, but it's up to you guys. Yeah, I have a few minutes.
Okay, yeah.
Are you guys open for that? Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Because I had a couple other questions, and I think it would be cool to see what his thoughts are on this. So one thing that he talked about is something about merging with information through our energy field, which I thought was fascinating. And getting, like, are we really able to essentially learn anything we'd like to by tapping in our energetic field and therefore, I guess, by definition, the unified field, right, if we want to call it that. And is there any technique, such as like an intentional prayer or meditation or other kind of teaching that Erik could clue us into in order to maybe practice and learn how to do that? Because I think a lot of people that, especially I know a lot of my audience would be interested in knowing, you know, something tangible that we can put into practice to raise our consciousness and to get information that might serve us to better awaken and remember who we are. Because we know it in the mind, but I think sometimes that feeling and in the heart space, you know, takes that connection. So I just am curious what his thoughts are.
Yeah, if you're looking for a way to, if you're looking for a teaching he's saying it's better to identify how do you learn best, because if it's more of a ritual that you learn best through, then you need to hand design a ritual that's going to get you to where you need to be in that open space to merge your energetic field with the greater and obtain information. If you're visual, then maybe you want to do a guided meditation. And he says, if you're audio, maybe it's a chant or a sound or music that gets you there. And we kind of forget that, and I was mentioning that before when we were talking about school, how we're being taught in a specific way. We forget to ask ourselves, well, how am I going to learn that the easiest, the best way? What's the best way to learn for me? And then you create it from the material that somebody's giving you. So, like, if I'm sitting around telling you, yeah, dude, you can totally expand your energy, kind of make it open. Think of a bunch of Pac-Mans, your little yellow circles with their mouths open. And that Pac-Man is going to eat some of the information that's coming to you, and you're going to absorb it, and you're going to know it. All right, so how are you going to do that? Well, you figure it out. I've told you that it's a Pac-Man. You figure out how the best way to put the Pac-Man into your energy. So I just want to lay that out there, but absorbing, merging information. The biggest hurdle there is the belief system wrapped around that. We're taught as soon as we are engaging in the world that there's a process to everything. That first you have to do this, then you have to do that, and then this, and then finally you get your answer. And energetically or spiritually speaking, processes, not necessary, not really needed. But we're coming at it from that angle. And so we, the guides and everyone, are going, all right, well, they're only going to listen if we tell them it's some kind of process. And it's hard. Language is getting in the way. Your structure of how it should be is getting in the way because it's actually turning out to be an expectation and not a reality, not the truth. So you want to merge, you got to get your head straight and realizing that we're all baby birds. Baby bird is born. It knows. It doesn't have to learn. It already knows how to migrate. It knows how to clean itself. It knows how to eat. It knows how to build nests. It just knows. We're actually all that way, but for somehow our culture thought that it was much more valuable to pretend that the older people knew more, and they were going to teach us. And now kind of our phase in evolution right now is, the children know so much more, right? We're starting to put children and younger people on pedestals because they're coming in with this intuition, clairvoyancy, claircognizance, all of this. Our elderly and our youngest are awesome, but what if you're not part of that group? What, are you just stuck air? No. You just swim faster to keep up. No. You get on the fence. You let go of some beliefs, just suspended. You don't got to bury them or anything. Just suspend them. And then sit down and figure out how you're going to learn best. What's the easiest path for you to take? Because not always the hard, treacherous path is going to get you the best response. Energetically speaking, if it's coming to you, you're going to be able to surf it. It's not going to take you under the wave and hold you down against, the ocean floor. You can surf it. That's that kind of feeling of success, if you want to define it that way. So get on the fence, suspend belief, open up your Pac-Man mouth, and go through it. Do it again and again and again and again and again and again and again. He's still doing that. I'm not going to do that anymore. And you find a certain comfort with it. And when you find a comfort with it, you're going to find your own answer. And what's more powerful than you going out and finding your own answer? Maybe it's based on someone's teaching, but you hand-designed it and you reached and grabbed it. Being human is truly an amazing experience. But when I watch people, I seriously think that you're only grasping like half of what it really is. We're so mean to ourselves, man. We need to pop around, jump around and pop people in the head and get them to stop being mean to themselves. We'd really open up then, wouldn't we?
I think most of it. Go ahead. Wait, sorry. Go ahead. Who was talking?
Erik, he was laughing. He goes, "Oh shit, did I even answer your question?"
I think so. I think in his way he did. I think, I think ultimately there's so many who have, the self-worth issues and the self-loathing issues and the do I deserve, and you have a lot of lack consciousness that comes from the do I deserve, and there's a lot of that going around, and it's programming, really. I mean, it's just programming, and we get it from maybe childhood programming, maybe another experience, and that's what I was talking about earlier. I think that we get these beliefs that are stuck in our field, and it's just sometimes you just want to flick them out of there. You just want to get them out of there, and sometimes that's easy, and sometimes it's not so easy, I think, depending on the person.
He agrees.
But, yeah, okay. But, okay, so then this is the other thing he talks about, which I think is interesting, about how source it's like you guys talk about breaking off a chunk, right? That idea. But I'm curious if there's, because I know in the book it talks about him meeting God, if you will, the source of all, and I kind of call it the divine origin of all creation. But it's kind of this light, right? Let's just call it this giant, beautiful light. But in that, and that everything is made from that, and everything kind of essentially ultimately returns to that, I would assume, at some level, or some degree of that. Is there some type of system? Are there, like, I like to call them kind of the architects. Like, are there these beings that are kind of in charge of building out worlds and universes and multiverses, and what does that look like to him? Or is it literally like, bam, there's a planet fully done, all the species in place, like everything's done? I'm just curious.
He so badly wants to mess with you.
I'm sure,
He's sitting here
but
going,
that's okay.
He goes,
it's because he knows I have a sense of humor. It's okay.
Yes. He goes, let's just go ahead and confirm to her that it is a white dude with a beard, and his name is God.
No. That I know.
Right. It is a gigantic source of pure energy. Freaking phenomenal. You will, it's amazing. You'll line up and buy tickets for this shit. Like, it's awesome. But you were asking how, like, the planets and everything were made. And he stood up and he pretended to fart, and he says that's how they're made.
Naturally. That sounds like him.
God. I don't think I've ever seen him do that one. Okay. Keeping it together. Okay. He says, with as ease as it was to make a joke, the kind of ease, that flow in the communication that we're having right now in this conversation, that's the ease that it takes to manifest or create, let's say, earth, light, snow, trees, whatever it is. We don't have designated energies that sit there and knit this shit together. To say that we have a designated energy that does that is to say that we have designated energies that cannot do that. And that's where the mess up is. We can all do that. Yeah, we can all do that. So if you find yourself in that position of needing to give birth in those ways, you're going to find yourself working on that project. It's a living energetic being where I am is not like a living energetic person, because when you blink your eyes, and you open them again, you're going to be looking at the same shit you were just looking at right before you blinked your eyes, right? And if I'm talking to you, Stephanie, I know the next word that I'm going to say is going to go to you, Stephanie, and you, Stephanie, is going to respond to me. But in our energetic space where I am, you may be talking to Bob, and then Bob absorbs a different kind of an energy, and now Bob is a Charlie, and a Charlie turns to a Jenny, and a Jenny is an Ann and a Mary, and it grows, and it changes, and it shifts. So it's not just this one deity, this one being who is doing this one particular job. Good. I hope I could explain that well. I really dig your idea of like this cosmic soup thing, because you put in ingredients and they mix in a certain way and they taste awesome, and it's kind of going around and cooking, but it can morph. And this morphing is not unusual. It's totally not unusual. It is expected. It's accepted. And it works better for where we are. Dude, it will not work well on Earth. It will mess with your shit. Your brain will go, what just happened? You should be Stephanie, but now you're Diane. What?
This is what I'm seeing. It's that movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, I think, where it's like the dreamscape changes. Like you're thinking one thing, and then suddenly it's like you're in a city, and then the city's upside down. And that building changes, and I forgot what it's called, like Invictus or something weird like that. But anyway, I don't know if that's what he's talking about in some respects. It's almost like it morphs and changes so quickly that you're constantly never knowing if you're up or down or left or right, and it just is, that way. And you're just kind of experiencing what you're experiencing in that moment as you desire to experience it.
He said, yes, that movie is a great visual to what I'm talking about.
Okay, that's what I was saying. Okay.
Take away the being confused.
Mm-hmm.
Take away the frustration and the constant problem solving the situation. Because as it's morphing and changing, you're participating in it, and you feel it all happening. It's really wild.
Mm-hmm.
Is the morphing caused by thought, basically? Thought creates reality? Is that what you're saying, Erik?
Yeah, Mom. But, it's not so much of that thought energy, because from here we resonate mostly, I guess we could describe it as an emotional value.
Mm-hmm.
So if, these 8 hearts kind of get together and they all are having the same emotion, and that's what's resonating. Let's say one heart changes a tune, we create a harmony, and then we create a song, and then it's an orchestra, and then maybe only one violin is playing. Kind of like that.
How do you create another planet with emotions rather than thought?
See, you're thinking right now, Mom, that emotions aren't tangible. Therefore, it can't create a tangible experience. But that's a human thinking. That's a scientific approach. Because that can't be defined scientifically, then obviously something is missing. But emotions are one of the purest vibrational energies. Like it's the easiest way to get good, clean energy. And what is everything made of?
Energy.
Dun, dun. So if we get around and we put our heart energy or our emotions into a designing, into an element, and there's enough of us around, it's going to manifest itself.
Would Erik say that the heart is really kind of the architect and the thought pattern maybe that gets created from that emotional feeling is really the executioner, like meaning it goes out and does it?
Yeah, he calls it the minion. Yes. I like that description.
Okay. Because I always say to people, you are the designer of your life, and I always say there's a link between the heart and the mind in that. It's like the mind is your whole body, your whole being. It's not like in your brain. When I say the mind, I don't really mean it's located directly in the brain. I just mean that it's your system that is working with all of those energies that are available to you to create what it is you desire. But it really starts in the heart. And the heart does have a thinking of its own. Science has proven that. So I think, without getting into the DNA levels and all that, I understand where he's coming from, that it really starts in our emotional body. And that's what people would say connects to the heart, I suppose, if we had to put a location to it.
Yep.
Okay. I'm so glad we got there. I'm so glad we got to that same page in the same book, hopefully. Well, I've really enjoyed this time. Is there anything Erik would like to tell me personally? Is there anything he'd like to share with me about anything, any advice he has on any level that I need to know?
Just say it, Erik. Come on, don't play around. There's a few things, yes. He said the first one is don't give up your show. Even if you have other things on your plate, this show provides a record kind of everything you're doing because it's stored and people can access it later. Mm-hmm. He says that you're going to be presented with a little more fanfare and a little more fame and to do your work in a different style. He says it's fine if you do it in a different venue, in a different style, but please don't give up on this. Let this stay your baby and let it grow for a long time. So you will end up in front of the camera, so get comfortable you looking into the lens. He's laughing. And the life for you is not all about the material. Don't forget about your people. You cherish everything that comes your way. And he goes, it's kind of exhausting. Says, when are you not going to cherish something? Take a break and just play. So you know what I mean, like really play and not think about the clock and not think about what you need to do next. Because I know that's exciting stuff for you to stay organized and see the few steps that are right ahead of you. Nothing wrong with that shit. But have the other duality and just play.
Thank you.
He's doing pointing his two fingers at his eyes and then pointing at the phone like, I am looking at you.
Yeah. No, I hear you. Thank you, Erik. Yeah, I resonate with that, and I understand what he's saying, and I'm not giving up my show. I have 2 shows, actually, so I'm doing one where I'm really empowering people to know who they are, and that's Awaken Angels, and then this one is where I get to share beautiful people like you guys with the world and bring other teachings to light, and yeah.
He's laughing and saying, when are you going to do the sex show? There's a sex show? Yeah.
That's a naked angels?
No, something, sexual transformation show, sexual turn it over show. He's laughing. He said it's next to you? Are you in a studio or something?
There was a show he can go listen to called Sexual Enlightenment that I did a few weeks ago. I already did that show.
He goes, no, when are you going to make that like a channel, baby? Like all this.
Well, I will reach out to them and see if they want to be part of Angelic Lightstream for sure. That's awesome. Erik is a crack-up, man. That's
He's
awesome.
something else.
Yeah, I get that. Well, it's been a blessing, and it's been so great to have you all here. And I just, I really appreciate the ledges you've walked out on, and I've witnessed some of those ledges through the blog space, and I know that there's a lot of, controversy you've had to kind of come up with or come against, I guess you could say, in what you do.
Oh, yeah.
And
that's pretty typical with this subject,
Yeah, I mean, I have to say I've passed around the interview with Jesus because I think that's awesome, among others. But I think there's just such a need to kind of, as Erik would say, get rid of the bullshit, right? And really get to the naked truth. It's what I call angels in the buff. It's getting to the naked truth of like how this all works and not cluttering it with static information that doesn't serve us. And so I just commend both of you, Jamie and Elisa, and Erik, of course, for doing your part to create that ease that we are all light surfers, as I like to call it. So it's funny he picked up on that earlier. And really, we don't have to be light workers. It's not about working at it. It's really just surfing it and riding it and going the flow in the stream, right? And that's awesome. The beauty. That's the beauty of what you
Stephanie,
do.
Stephanie, are you talking about the Jesus interview in print or on the video?
Well, I read it and I also watched it on YouTube, so I saw both, and it was really fascinating on both accounts. And I had to take that down for a while, but I put it back up. But it's just so epic because you hear Jesus saying yes, and also you hear Erik's voice. A mother knows the sound of her own kid's voice, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, no, it was a profound interview, and I've shared it with people who, I really feel, for me at least, and we didn't really get into this earlier with the Christ consciousness question, but for me, I totally resonate with the fact that, to me, Yeshua, Ben Joseph, would not have the ego to go around telling people what to do and how to do it and all this stuff that seems to be kind of attributed to him, right? And I think that was the beauty of that interview. It was really kind of confirming that in my own mind, where he lived as the example. He knew who he was, and he lived it. And in witnessing how he lived it, people were inspired to maybe write stories about him. He had a good PR machine around him that he had no control over, is how I look at it. But it was just a really important message, ladies. I really want to commend you for bringing it to the world because I think it's an important one. There's a lot of shifting going on with people's belief systems, and it's important, to me at least, to empower them to not place something outside of them anymore that they must worship and adore and bow down to and feel judged by and feel fear of. It's about knowing that God is within us and dwelling in us as us and through us in every way as energy, and that's love. And that's really the message, I think, that is the truth of what I know. And what I intend to bring to the world in one way, shape, or form. So here we are. But I love what you're doing, and just keep doing it and sharing your light. It's so important.
Thank you, Stephanie. I'm sure you will share your light because it's a very bright one, and I appreciate what you're doing.
I can't. Yeah, I just am really glad we've gotten to connect here, and it's such a little love fest. And thanks to Erik so much as well for finding a way for us to all connect, because I know that's partly his work. But well, again, the time flew and went over, which is why I asked for permission for us to do that. So I just wanted to give everybody your information again so we can give everybody that. It's Channeling Erik, and again, that's ERIK.com is the best kind of hub, if you will, to find Elisa. And you can find her new book and their new book, My Son and the Afterlife, and that's going to also be available on Amazon.com. And Jamie, I know you have a lot to offer via your Center for Love and Light, which is just amazing. I love the name. Such as your group readings and some of the other things we mentioned earlier, and that can all be explored on your website at withloveandlight.com. And I just love that too. And is there anything else either of you would like to share personally of any events or any things or anything people need to know before we sign off here tonight?
No,
well,
Erik,
thank you.
I
just like to tell Erik I love you.
He said, I love you, Mom. He's squeezing you like for a hug.
Oh.
Aw. And thank you, Elisa, for kind of giving up your spot of the interviewer, because I know that's hard, because that's normally what you do is ask all these questions. But I'm glad you got a couple side notes in there and got to talk to him a little bit, because I know.
Oh, no, Erik's the ringmaster. This is his gig. I love listening to Jamie and Erik.
Oh, beautiful. Well, Jamie and Lisa and Erik, thank you so much again for joining. And everybody, you can find all the information you need regarding Angels in the Buff via our Facebook page, as mentioned earlier, of the same name, and show archives and other links via our website, angelsinthebuff.com. You can also find more information on my upcoming events and panels and workshops and everything I'm doing via stephanielodge.com. And next week I'm back with the second episode of my new healing program called Awaken Angels, as mentioned, which will be a live transmission of angelic love and light through guided visualization. And I'll be sharing my healing work called Halonetics. For those of you who don't know what that is, you'll have to tune in, or you could check out our world premiere that just aired this last Tuesday and basically listen to the archive, and you'll get some updates. So everybody, again, I hope everyone can just join us next week, and we had such a good time last week, and I'm so glad and blessed to be here sharing healing with so many hearts. And I guess really that's it for tonight. Ladies, again, thank you for joining us here on Angels in the Buff. Thank you, Erik, again. And this has been another heart-centered episode, and I'm so excited, and thank you for joining us, and we will see you next Tuesday, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern, here on the new Angelic Lightstream Network, home of Angels in the Buff and Awaken Angels. Until then, good night, everyone. Sweet dreams, and just know that your loved ones you miss are just a breath or a thought away. This we know. Love you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.